I've taken the advice of the many, and I've gotten better at fighting Raziel. My personal best time was around 1 minute and 48 seconds. My average time is probably closer to 2 minutes, maybe 2:10, so there's still a lot of room for improvement. I think I've identified the issue. It's what I like to call the doldrums of Phase 1. After my opening rotation, when you can cast several Death Skulls while in Living Death, Raziel ends up being at about 400,000 health. During the first 45 seconds of the fight, I deal 400,000 damage. The next 200,000 damage to get him to Phase 2 takes about just as long. These are the doldrums. I'm stuck in the post-burst phase, but the pre-end phase. If I could deal a bit more damage during the burst phase, I could get Raziel to Phase 2 within the first minute. So how can I do this? There are a few options. First, Blood Reavers. It would add damage since I'm healing with Soul Split and usually Vampirism, but it's probably not enough to get what I'm looking for. The issue is Blood Reaver scrolls aren't something I want to blow through. From start to finish, making Blood Reaver scrolls is time consuming. Gather Bloods of Orcus and Hellfire Metal, turn them into binding contracts with 200 Spirit Shards and a Summoning Pouch and a Blue Charm, kill a Blood Reaver, then convert the pouch into 20 scrolls, or 22 during the Voice of Amalot in Prothinus. Upkeep on the Hellhound is much easier, although if Raziel were still poisonable, I'd use a Blood Reaver without question. The damage hits from the Blood Reaver can trigger weapon poison, so it can be pretty powerful, but he is immune to poison, so oh well. The next option is Power Armor. As much as I love the extra health from the Death Warden armor, the extra damage from the Death Dealer armor does add up. Rather than making tier 90 Power Armor, I could just keep farming Raziel and get lucky. In fact, I did steal a pair of his shoes and the shirt off his back. The armor of the first Necromancer is tier 95 Power Armor, so it provides even more damage than Death Dealer, and it comes with 2 set effects. With at least 2 pieces of the armor, every piece you have equipped increases the basic damage of your conjured spirits by 7%. With 4 pieces, every piece increases their duration by 5%. Not bad, but the purpose of optimizing my Raziel kills is to make farming this gear easier and faster. If I already had it, I'd be done. I was debating whether or not I wanted to unlock the tier 90 Death Dealer armor by completing Killy's final task, killing the Ambassador and killing Telos. What to do? Well, an update dropped adding a grace period to the completionist cape, allowing compers to wear it without the 120 Necromancy requirement. You just need to have every other comp achievement done. Kinda silly if you ask me, but I'm not one to look a gift unicorn in the mouth to wear my comp cape again. All I needed to do was Killy's final task, and that settled it. Time for ED3. I had soloed ED3 before using magic, making it all the way to the Ambassador, at which point I chucked a Death Touch dart at him. But Killy wants some Ulthuan Necroplasm, which only drops if you kill the Ambassador with a Necromancy, or have someone else dart him for you, but that feels like cheating. With how strong Necromancy is, and how comfortable I've gotten with it, I was pretty confident I could kill the Ambassador after a few attempts. Mechanically, he's pretty simple. It's just that he can dish out a lot of damage in a short amount of time if you don't deal with it correctly. We'll talk about that soon enough. The first boss is the Crassian Leviathan, and I melted that poor thing. His only notable mechanic is his head sweep, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's tunneled before and died to it without even trying to run away. It's super simple if you actually react to it. If you don't, it's very deadly. When the Leviathan extends its neck out of the ship's deck, you want to be standing on the side opposite of where the sweep begins. Once it finishes the sweep, it'll come back the other way, so run to the other side of the snake hole. At some point, it'll move to the opposite end of the arena, but I killed it too fast for that to happen. If that does happen, you can just surge over to him. The heads in the poison clouds in the middle probably do something, but I've never even accidentally died to that, so I have no idea. Next up is Taraket, who does count as undead, so make sure you bring your Sav Amulet. You're supposed to swap protection prayers through this fight, but I just camped Soul Split because Necromancy. Also, I had a Blood Reaver with me, and the more you heal, the more damage it does, which means more poison procs can hit, and since he's not immune to poison, you want to get as many poison procs as possible. Poison does a lot of damage. This fight is also pretty simple, although it has more parts than the Crassian Leviathan's fight. Get him to 200,000 health, which is halfway. He goes to one side of the arena, heals up, and summons a big zombie. Kill the zombie. Get him down to 200k again. He goes to the other side of the arena and summons another big zombie and heals back up. Kill that zombie as well. Get him down to 200k again, and he starts summoning ghost walls, not unlike Raziel, and then kill him. Throughout the fight, he summons skeletons that he'll consume to give himself a sizable heal, and he'll place a portal that summons even more skeletons. It's a good idea to destroy the portal since too many skeletons can be a bit dangerous. Also, it's probably not a bad idea to kill some of the skeletons along the way. Mostly just do AoE. A fun strategy is to place yourself among a bunch of the skeletons and use Blood Siphon. It kills a bunch of them, heals you up quite a bit, and deals a beefy hit to your primary target based on how much health you absorbed from the enemies around you. I think my favorite part of the fight is how Taraket keeps talking about how he controls the dead, while I have 2 corpses at varying stages of decomposition and a ghost smacking him around. Finally, the Ambassador. The first attempt was a bit messy. Phase 1 consists of cycling auto attacks of different combat styles, curse that causes a damaging smoke cloud to spawn at your location after the bar above your head drains, and unstable black holes that you need to stun to get rid of. I ignored the style switching and just camped Soul Split. I now realize that it's better to camp deflect ranged and let your Blood Reaver and Vampirism aura heal you. The survivability is better. The smoke clouds, well, it would be smart to place them strategically, but I was a putz about it and kind of just let them drop wherever. What sucks is if you're not careful and you run out of the fire immediately after it drops, you'll actually drop more flame because you drop 2 patches. By staying put, both flame patches get placed on the same spot. For the black holes, you can use Soul Strike. It costs a single residual soul and has no cooldown. I guess if Sap Soul is on cooldown and you just cast Volley of Souls, you could be in trouble, but Sap Soul's cooldown is short enough that it's probably not a problem. After about a minute into the fight, the Ambassador throws out 6 sinister fragments, affectionately called spinners, to the edges of the arena and spews 3 death beams that rotate around him. The goal here is to destroy as many of the spinners as possible in about 50 seconds without getting hit by the beams. You have about 6 seconds for each one before the beam pushes you out of range. Ideally, you destroy all of them. In my experience, 2 of them end up hanging on by just a thread, but that's okay. For every spinner he reabsorbs, he builds up a strong attack that can hit for 9,000 damage. You know when the attack's coming because he has a little bar above his head that drains. You need to mitigate this damage with defensive abilities: Debilitate, Reflect, Resonance. The Bone Shield incantation makes casting these defensives very easy. He'll repeat this phase until he gets to 550,000 health. You want to get him to this point before he throws out the spinners again. A second set of spinners just slows things down tremendously. And it's also a risky phase. You could fail to kill enough spinners, you could use your defensives wrong, you could accidentally walk into one of the death beams. Surely that's never happened to me. So at 550,000 health, he summons a bunch of Crassians to poke at you with ranged hits. Annoying, but not too hard to deal with. They do make using Resonance against the Ambassador a bit tricky though. At 400,000 health, Seiryu shows up and brings his theme song with him. He breathes fire into the arena, healing you up to full, killing the Crassians, and clearing all the flame patches. After Seiryu and the Ambassador finish up their little role-playing session, the final phase begins. And it's the scary one. A bunch of hands sprout up around the arena, and when they slap the ground, they send spooky clouds of smoke toward the Ambassador. You need to stand between the slappy hand and the Ambassador before the smoke cloud spawns, otherwise the cloud is white and heals the Ambassador for 7.5k. If the cloud is black, it won't heal him, but you'll take a bit of damage. You need to walk in a tight circle around the Ambassador to catch as much smoke as possible. That's the easiest way of handling it. The dangerous part is when the room gets red. And no, he's not developing photo, that's stupid. Just stick to the script. After 10 auto attacks, he blasts you with 5 consecutive magic attacks that deal 9,000 damage each. What do? Devotion with Deflect Magic nullifies the damage altogether. I screwed up the first time I tried this. I switched prayers but didn't use Devotion. The spinners did me in the second time. If I reflected and healed a bit, I might have survived, but only barely. An auto attack probably would have finished me off immediately after. Third attempt, he absorbed 2 spinners, but I somehow managed to time my Debilitate just right for it to reduce the damage of both hits. When it came to the final phase, I was playing very carefully and slowly, basically sitting at full adrenaline while I waited for his scary attack. I didn't want to accidentally put myself at like 49% adrenaline before I had to use Devotion. I survived the first assault and continued DPSing him slowly, preparing to reflect the second round of hits. Reflect with Deflect Magic reduces the hits to about 2k each. Throw in a Debilitate and it gets even lower. It's still a lot of damage, but not unsurvivable. I lucked out though, and my Enhanced Devoted perk procced, nullifying the damage entirely. And then Ambi died. If I'd placed a death mark on him, he would have died before the second assault, but I didn't, so he didn't. You only need to cast it once during the fight, there's no reason not to. Effectively, it reduces these bosses' health by 30k. And with the Ambassador felled by my necrotic fingers, I collected my newly acquired Ulthvin Necroplasm and prepared for the next challenge, Telos. To access the Telos encounter, you need to gather all 4 sigil pieces from each of the bosses in the Heart of Galanor and combine them into an ancient sigil. You only need to kill each of those bosses once, so it's something I had already done. As for the fight itself, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what you're supposed to do. I just stood in the beams when I saw them and attacked Telos. For the final phase, I stood in the things he was siphoning from and killed the little golems that showed up. I killed him. Was 0% Telos always this trivial? Or is Necromancy allowing me to lull mechanics my way through the entire fight? Make sure you pick up the fragment of anima off the ground before you leave, otherwise you'll have to kill him again. I had already killed Araxor and got the envenomed cloth, so it was time to bring all of this crap to Killy and get our comp cape. I mean, unlock the ability to craft the tier 90 power armor. It's nice to have this override again. So now I need to farm up a bunch of Harmotic plates to make the last 3 tier 90 power armor pieces. I don't technically need the body or the boots since I have Raziel's already, but having soloed ED3 for the first time, it got me thinking about other potential upgrades. The Undead Slayer ability and the Reaver's Ring. The former boosts your damage against undead by 15% for 10 seconds with a 60-second cooldown. It's also off the global cooldown, so you can cast it at the same time as another ability. The latter, the Reaver Ring, increases your critical strike strike chance by 5% at the cost of 5% accuracy. Because of Necromancy's uniqueness compared to the other combat styles, a 5% drop in accuracy translates to a 5% damage reduction if it drops below 100%. However, because Necromancy's crits are 75% stronger at 120, you gain damage with this ring. A 5% chance to do 75% more damage works out to an average of 8.75% more damage. Even with the 5% damage reduction, you'll do more damage. And since the Necromancy goes to 120, you'll actually have even more accuracy than 100%, so it's totally reasonable that you'll have over 100% accuracy even with the ring, especially if you're fighting undead, because you'll be able to use the Salve amulet, which increases your accuracy by 20%. The Reaver's ring will take a while to get. We need 10 Berserker rings, which means killing thousands of Dagonoth kings. They're easy to kill, but it'll be a hell of a grind. Then we'll need to get a Heart of the Berserker from Orichalca. We'll talk about that when we get closer to actually making the ring. Instead, I want to talk about the Undead Slayer ability. To unlock it, we need to create its corresponding ability codex. To make that, all we need to do is buy the blueprint for 200,000 Dungeoneering tokens and cobble it together with 2 cut onyxes, 60 oceanic components, and 100 blackstone hearts. Onyxes are easy, I'm swimming in them. Oceanic components are easy too. Just disassemble Sea Singer armor, which means just doing port missions and getting chi. But where do we get blackstone hearts? The Shadow Reef, ED3. The first 2 bosses uncommonly drop between 1 and 3 at a time, while the Ambassador drops between 1 and 20 at a time. Because I have the Elite Dungeon chest upgrade purchased months ago for 700,000 Dungeoneering tokens, back when I was doing the Dungeoneering grind, I have a passive 20% chance to double any drops from the bosses in the dungeon and a 5% chance to drop any of the basic loot from the enemies. You can do this by toggling the auto collect on the chest and get the 20% boost, but then the chest doesn't auto collect stuff and it's just inconvenient. Also, that upgrade allows you to bank within the dungeon. Getting the hearts could be over in as few as 3 Ambassador kills. Spoilers, it won't be, but it could. Even with very little experience, I could get to the Ambassador in about a half an hour. Killing him only take about an extra 5 minutes, unless I die. He's still kinda tough. I did have 13 Death Touch darts though. Yeah, I could kill him normally, but I could also just use the darts. I mean, what else would I use them for? That mini boss in ED4? Mr. Mistopheles, the jailer guy? Seems like a waste. 2 Eldritch crossbow stocks. Dart well used, don't you think? Oh, imagine if I completed the log before getting 100 blackstone hearts. I just need the pet and 1 more piece of the crossbow and I'll be done. So I'll be here in the Shadow Reef for a bit. I have gotten better at fighting the Ambassador since recording the footage you just watched, but that doesn't mean I'm averse to any advice. What I've noticed, and I love seeing it, is all the discourse between everyone in the comments, trading advice and tips. It's all so helpful and friendly, and I'm not just saying that for engagement. I love this little pleasant community we've got going on here. It's such a nice treat. Thank you to the channel members for being channel members. And to prevent people from clicking away from the video and negatively affecting my watch time, I've opted to abuse human psychology and keep you glued here with a video of a cat. I've heard humans love these things. I mean, we humans love these things. I've heard we humans love these things. Yeah.